How cute is this? Welcome to my new reading nook that I have set up in my office that I feel such a degree of comfort here, and I sit back and I look at all the things that I've set up in my office, and I look at my plants and my books and art that I've created or art that I've been gifted, my podcast microphone, and I just feel so inspired sitting here. So I'm excited to share this space with you. I am on day 2 of my cycle. So this is, for context, that's my heaviest bleed day, and I'm winding down for the day, and I thought, I'm just craving reading some of Jane Hardwicke Collings' words. She is the queen of feminine rites of passage, I would say, and I love the way she speaks to the feminine, I guess, and our blood rites and menstruation and our fertility and pregnancy and birth and perimenopause and menopause and menarche and death. I love how she speaks to it all. So I was reading parts specific to menstruation from her book, Blood Rites, The Spiritual Practice of Menstruation. And I just started reading a part and I was like, I think I just want to record this and have this as a little special inspirational video. So welcome to my reading nook. Welcome to my moon camping chair. This is my shawl that I got from the op shop. I'm sitting on my splash blanket for free bleeding. This is my chakra lamp. I just want to show you all my things now. Okay, so reading from page 49 of Blood Rites by Jane Hardwicke Collings. So, what's the relationship between the moon and our cycle? The story goes that prior to electricity in the late 1800s, all women ovulated according to their physiological and hormonal response to the amount of light in the night sky. Our biological blueprint is to ovulate when there is the most light in the night sky, the full moon. This then leads to the bleeding time corresponding with the dark moon. We have a physiological feedback loop in our bodies that regulates our melatonin production, which influences many things, including the hormones that ripen and release an egg from our ovary, according to the amount of light we are exposed to at night. With electricity and the resulting increasing light pollution, as well as physical stresses of travel, modern life, the food we eat, and the chemical pollutants in the environment that we ingest and breathe, women now bleed and ovulate not only at different times to each other, unless they live together, but also at different times to the moon's signals. The moon creates the tides on Earth as well as ours. It interacts with the electromagnetic fields of our bodies and affects our internal physiological processes. Many women who understand the relationship between the moon and their menstrual cycle seek to align their cycle with the moon, but mostly this isn't what happens due to our modern world and electricity. In the old times, when we lived together as a community, the women all bled at the same time at the dark of the moon. The story goes that they would retreat together to the moon lodge or red tent and enjoy their bleeding time free of the chores and concerns of their lives. They usually spent 3 days away from their families, just with the other women. They would talk together, rest, dream, care for themselves and each other. It was a nurturing environment that they all loved and appreciated. Many of the women would have prophetic dreams during this time. The women would be blessed with a vision on their 3rd day of bleeding, and this would be shared with the whole community on their return. The community hugely valued and relied on these visions the women would return with and used them as instruction for direction and focus for the community. In our modern Western patriarchal culture, this practice of retreating at our bleeding time has almost disappeared. However, it remains in our hearts, wombs, and souls as the place we retreat to when we do bleed. The acceptance of this practice changed when the patriarchal culture in which we live took hold several thousand years ago, and all the major religions dishonoured the feminine, making all things associated with women, and especially her fertility, her sexuality, and her blood, taboo, dirty, evil, bad, shameful. In the Bible, Leviticus 15:19-30, when a woman has a discharge, and the discharge in her body is blood, she shall be in her menstrual impurity for 7 days, and whoever touches her shall be unclean until the evening, and everything on which she lies during her menstrual impurity shall be unclean. Everything also on which she sits shall be unclean. And whoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And whoever touches anything on which she sits shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Whether it is the bed or anything on which she sits, when he touches it, he shall be unclean until the evening. The red tent was interpreted by male anthropologists as a place used to send women away when they were bleeding, because they were deemed dirty and needing to be separated from the rest of the people, especially their husbands, and to stop them from preparing food, lest they contaminate it. Now, in our modern culture, menstruation is basically ignored. Women are encouraged and maybe even forced to carry on regardless. Ads for tampons show girls in white playing sport. As always, if we want to understand our current situation, we can look at our history and herstory. With its connection to reproduction, our ancestors viewed menstruation as dangerous, potent and mystical. And with its connection to the moon, menstruation created fear around its cosmic energies. During the Middle Ages, it was said that men ought to keep away from their wives during menstruation because it was then that deformed, blind, lame, leprous offspring could be conceived. And even in the 1970s, Chief Rabbi of Israel gave warning to those getting married. Coitus in menstruation resulting in the cutting of life on earth and the denial of life to come. The correlation between the attitudes to the feminine of our culture and the way we treat the earth are clear and obvious. Common practices around farming, including the associated irrigation and deforestation, as well as mining and fishing and hunting, not only ignore basic earth principles such as the cyclical nature of growth, they also poison the soil, the waterways, the creatures, and the entire ecosystem, all for the more now, go, grow mandate of our growth-fixated and oriented patriarchal culture. I expect this all is sounding familiar. How a culture values and treats the earth is how they value and treat the feminine. Nature is being controlled and manipulated. The menstrual cycle is controlled with fake hormones to regulate it and make it more predictable. Fertility is controlled with fake hormones that often have drastic long-term effects. Birth is controlled and menopause is controlled. Controlling all these processes of the natural female life cycle also causes toxicity, poisoning, shutting down of systems within the body, depleting the ecosystem, and therefore negatively affecting the basic well-being of a woman. As well, the urine of women who are on the pill and other hormonal contraceptives flows to the waterways, adding to the estrogen dominance that then reaches everyone. And then we have plastic, and don't get me started on plastic. So that's how it works and some of the things that negatively impact it. The menstrual cycle is a complex, stress-sensitive system, and there are a lot of stressors and stressors in our modern lives. Add those to the negative beliefs we have inherited, and it's no wonder the menstrual cycle is screaming for our attention. If we are to thrive, we must shed the shame and reclaim this spiritual path of the feminine. And I love that, because, you know, there's so many different aspects you can take from that summary, and you can deep dive into so many aspects of history or current culture. But I feel like that just perfectly encapsulates the lifelong connection between feminine and the earth, and it is devastating. And even beyond female bodies, how we treat the earth is reflected by how we treat our own bodies, how we treat and observe and work with our own health. It just makes sense. And this is why you know, if I was to be a religious person, it would be an earth-based religion, because, I mean, the earth is my religion, really. Any practices we do that connect us with our outer nature instinctively and intuitively and almost automatically connect us with our deeper inner nature. As above, so below. As within, so without. Everything is reflected. So much of our human nature is reflected to us by outer nature and the seasons and the moon cycles and natural forces. And if we pay more attention to that external, we will receive so much information and wisdom about our internal workings. And also, paying attention and being with that outer nature is medicinal for our inner nature. Paying attention to the outer natural cycles helps us align with and be more attuned to our own inner cycles. And that in itself, without changing anything else about how you live, is medicinal. And I just love that beautiful mirroring effect. And even though I wasn't the most nature-based kid growing up, because I wasn't really in a nature-based, camping, outdoorsy family, I always had this yearning and this calling towards plants and animals and the moon. Oh my God, I remember so many car rides home late at night as a child from a family gathering or a birthday party, and I would just be sitting in the back seat, and I would just, I guess especially if it was closer to a full moon, I would just lean my head against the window and I would just stare at that moon and just contemplate the moon. Yeah. So anyway, that's a bit about my journey with it, and that is pretty much just a nice summary of why it's so important to me. And I hope any or all of these words from Blood Rites, from Jane Hardwicke Collings, you have found inspiring, and hopefully they benefit your journey. Hopefully they can light some fires in your hearts and in your wombs to maybe show up differently for your cycle and for your period. And maybe, just maybe, that could change your whole life. Who knows? Who knows? Thanks for coming along to Reading with Karinda. This is literally Karinda's Corner. So thanks for being a part of the digital Karinda's Corner, and thank you for witnessing the in real life Karinda's Corner, still through a digital means. Thank goodness for these beautiful man-made creations that help me connect with you, but also shout out to nature. Nature is the real MVP.